Hello, welcome to the Victory Gardens first training session. I'm taking off my mask for clarity of purpose, and we're keeping distance between everybody. We want to make this available to people so they have productive activity during all this downtime. You can do gardening and spread out with just your plants and be totally safe. I'm Jim Converse. I'm the Sustainable Coordinator for Commonwealth, and this is our Resource Center, the Sustainable Resource Center. We're at 107 Park Avenue in Youngstown as part of the Elm Street Corridor Development Project and the Commonwealth Food Hub. We have a lot of activities going on. This activity is fairly new. It's to help train people how to grow some of their own vegetables. We'll be having small container box gardens for people that only have a small space or a small amount of energy they want to put into it. We think your energy will grow as you do it, and we also want to have raised bed gardens, and we have about 14 lots available for people that want to do more sustainable planting. We have today Parker Maynard, who is a master gardener, an all-around knowledgeable person, and he's going to be explaining some of the tips for beginning gardeners and growing things. Parker, it's all yours.
Thank you, Jim. Thank you, and thank you everybody who's showed up today. It's exciting. It's exciting to be a part of the emergence of a resource for the community to get growing. So I want to jump right into what we're doing right now. This season is where we're propagating plants. We're planting seeds directly in the garden. We're transplanting starts that maybe we got at a nursery center or started in the indoors earlier this season. And you're not going to get the Southern Living Home Magazine version from me, and that's not what this place is about. It's about practical gardening and getting started within your means and within the constraints of your circumstance, size of your lot. But the point is to make the resources accessible to you, because you need some materials to garden. You need some soil, and you maybe some space or some plants. And then of course the knowledge. So we want to help you develop the technical skills and a knowledge base to do this, and it's incredibly rewarding. Every step can be incredibly rewarding. So in terms of gardening, you could say it's in three phases in a way. You have propagation, which is seeding and transplanting, maybe putting onion sets in the ground, little bulbs, kind of like bulb flowers, but for onions. And then you've got the maintenance phase. So you got starting it with propagation, and then you have the maintenance phase, would be more like weeding, cultivating, and maybe pruning the plants. And then you have the harvest. Thank you, Jim. I wanted to be able to show those. Great. These are onion sets right here. So, and then the last phase would be more like your harvest and washing, packaging, and processing. Holding your harvest. So we'll break down the videos in terms of that. Today we're going to focus most on propagation because that's what time of year it is. The historical date for previous frost is for the last frost of the season. So you have frost all through the winter, which are temperatures below 32, which are going to kill a lot of your tender annual vegetables. Those temperatures usually stop around the 14th of May. So we're just outside of the final frost for the season, which means it's safe to start putting plants in the ground or getting plants out of your greenhouse or your indoor seed propagation area, wherever you're growing your seedlings, and get them outside to start experiencing some of the weather changes. That's just called hardening off. So these plants I've been taking them outside, and maybe they have a little bit of frost burn on the edges. That's okay. That strengthens the plant, gets the plant used to the ambient temperatures as they're going to be set out. So now's the time for propagation. So we've got seeds, obviously. I'm lucky enough to have a hardware store out in New Wilmington, Pennsylvania, a large Amish community. So they buy seeds in bulk. So we have a hardware store that actually has a wall full of jars and labels on them with the different types of seeds, and that's a great resource. And being that you're in Youngstown, I drove 30 minutes to get here from New Wilmington. We're in the same region, but you could say that's Pennsylvania, this is Ohio, and that's one thing that we'll talk about moving forward, is that we should think about our resource pool regionally, and then our production probably locally. So, you know, this area, this neighborhood, this town should be a production area, right? But as far as resources, we can think about it more regionally. So you have agricultural areas surrounding. I drove through a lot of by a lot of farms to get here, but we're a stone throw away, you know, in terms of those resources. Compost, I do a compost delivery service where it's really just composted horse manure in the back of a pickup truck, and you know, I could bring enough in 2 loads for this whole garden area, and it would revolutionize the fertility basin. So you should be able to call on this resource center to get the amendments you need for your own home garden, and the best, not just off the shelf, you know, commercial for the, you know, but the best for whoever would do, you know, would want to grow the best quality produce. So seeds, no brainer. Everybody knows these are carrot seeds right here, and I've got, you know, these are in the little bags. You're probably more familiar with these. Seed quality, you know, any reputable seed brand is gonna have a good, they have the germination rate on them generally. I love Johnny's seeds out of Maine. You can't beat Johnny's in my opinion. So that's a good resource for you to go to Johnny's. They sell to a lot of commercial growers, but really the thing to key in on when it comes to seeds is the date, the freshness of the seed. Use fresh seed. A lot of times you plant some and you end up with extra seed, so you keep it. The next year, fine, use it. But like the year after that, 2-year-old seed, don't waste your time and your space. We all have limited space in our homes, in our greenhouses. Get some fresh seed. It's $3 a packet. You know what I mean? And this place is a resource for that. So, you know, getting a hold of Pat and Jim, they'll be able to get you toward a good seed resource so that you're planting fresh seed, so you're optimizing your time and you're experiencing success, which is a big part of this. Is that a lot of people that I tried gardening, I couldn't get the seeds to germinate, this and that, and it was like, where'd you get your seed? Well, my you know, aunt or my sister gave me some seed that she had, and it was like from 2016. Like the seed has an embryo in it, and it has what's called endosperm or starches to feed that seed. It's going to be able to store. You want a dry place. Certainly want a dry place. And as soon as the moisture starts to get to the seed, it starts to produce enzymes, and the enzymes start to eat up that starch because it thinks it's going to get a chance to actually germinate, and the seed goes bad quicker in any kind of moist temperature or moist climate. And then you want a cool dry place. Heat and moisture will trigger the seed's enzymatic activity to start germinating, and that's the process of it starting to go bad, you know, spoil or meet its expiration before you get it in the ground. So keep them cool, keep them dry, keep them dark. You know, light can trigger too. So these are in clear packages. I don't want them in the light. Generally, I want them in a dark place, just to prolong the shelf life. But rule of thumb: buy only what you need. So calculate how much you're gonna plant first and foremost. Plan your space, envision your space, and then calculate about how much seed you're gonna need for that season. And you know, places that are set up for storing seed, airtight jars, cool dry place. I can imagine you guys developing a seed room here. Probably be able to keep good track of the dates and get those. So we got seed, and then we've got, these are called sets, and I'm just gonna bring them closer to the camera to show. Is that good there? These are called onion sets. They're basically bulbs. They've been, you know, grown, and then they've been dried and suspended in some way. They don't have any green matter. They don't spoil very quick. They're hard. You guys can pass these around. These are great for starting in the garden because they pop up a green shoot within a week. They got a green shoot on them. You can do them real early in the season. Those could have been planted.
Mine's are up.
Yep, and it's really encouraging. And that's a good part of what gardening is about, is do things that work and show a result, and it's going to keep you out in the garden tending something that's alive, that's showing you some growth. So those onion sets are great for like April, you know, even March. You can get onion sets. I buy my peas in bulk because they say, you know, so I buy them in a big bag. I recommend, they say, you know, if you're stingy with your peas, they'll be stingy with you. So, you know, dig a trench, and then you scatter them in, and then cover them up and let them come in a little thick. They support one another, and they don't compete particularly. They're a leguminous crop. We'll talk a little bit more, but basically they have nodules on their root system that harbor beneficial soil bacteria that fix atmospheric nitrogen, into the soil. So it ends up fertilizing your soil. Okay, the sugars from the plant feed the bacteria. Bacteria are just about in every soil. They're ubiquitous, especially up here in the Northeast. You get into some desert soil, you might have to inoculate with them. And they do sell powder inoculants to put in or roll your seed around in before you, if you want to increase the number of that bacteria population. But they're ubiquitous. And the plant, it will find the plant, and when the plant, leguminous type plants, so peas and beans, essentially, peas and beans, there are trees and shrubs that do this as well, but it improves the soil around it and prepares it. So you could do a pea crop or a bean crop, and then the next year do some heavier feeding crop like a tomato plants or something like that, or corn, you know, if something that's going to pull more nitrogen from the soil. So it builds the soil while it produces. I like the sugar snap. I don't mess with shelling peas. I don't have that kind of time. I like to eat the whole thing. You know what I mean? So sugar snap peas or snow peas are good. This one here is snap peas. So we talked about sets and seeds, and then the other way to go is to buy starts from a nursery. These I started from seed, in my house, starting in March. February is, some people get, and late March, I mean probably the last week of March, some people get antsy and they want to start things early, and then it ends up just getting leggy, and it's a waste of effort. I don't know, if you enjoy it and get excitement and it kind of primes spring fever for you, then go for it. But I can tell you that most plants that are going to require a season of warmth and outdoor growth, you don't want to start them too early because they're just going to get root bound. It's gonna be frustrating because the temperatures are just not gonna get where you want them to soon enough. So, I mean, disclaimer, we could have another frost. Absolutely, could have a late frost. Probably not a deep frost, but who knows with the way climate is. So if you're gonna start gardening right now, if you're gonna start gardening before June, let me say that. If you're gonna start gardening before June, then be prepared to protect your crop outside. And you know, we can get into that in further videos, but I use little wire wickets, just pieces of wire that bend, and I'll set them over top of the row, and I'll roll out what's called row cover. Remay, R-E-M-A-Y, is a brand, but it's a floating row cover. It's a woven or a spun poly that you can reuse year after year, but you put that over top, or you could use sheets in your home garden. You could use sheets, absolutely, or tarp, plastic, hardware store plastic, you know, something to keep a heavier frost off your plant after this date. You'll be putting those on and off. Unless you use the remay, you can put on. If you planted your garden in April, late April, early May, you could roll that over top and leave it until the final frost, till June. You know, but if you're using sheets, you would have to put them on and take them off. Put them on and take them off. So if you have that kind of time, that's fine. The plastic will get extremely hot under there on even like a day like today where the sun shines and it's not cold, it'll bake them. So you have to be really, some people perforate them. We'll talk more about that. But if you want to extend the season earlier and get started earlier than June, there's some methods, but it's going to take you time and it's going to be a labor of love. Be like a baby, you know, taking care of an infant. I fried many plants because I wanted to get them out early or something, you know. And fry, I mean, the frost got to them and nipped them back. Even this year, I got a little bit antsy with some tomato plants I wanted to harden off, and we got hit, you know, before I could cover them. So it happens to the best of us, and it'll happen probably to you because you'll get excited. But you know, try to hold on to your horses a little bit. So what I have here are the seedlings. I have seedlings. So we talked about the seeds, which we can go into depth about, but in terms of seedlings, this time of year, you know, you've got long season crops and you have short season crops. Long season crops I associate with heat. You know, they need a period of heat, and they really get activated by day length and heat. So these are your Mediterranean crops, your eggplant, your tomatoes, you know, okra, zucchini, squash, these kind of things. They require some heat and the day length to really start to activate growth. I've got, these here are eggplant. So, you know, as we go through these different varieties, this is a little 3-inch container. you know, this could be a yogurt container easily, right? This could be a yogurt tub or Tupperware or something like that. I got these I salvage these from nurseries. You know, you've noticed all the local nurseries don't hardly exist anymore, and you have the big box stores have taken over. In our neighborhood, we've got a lot of Amish, and they still run nurseries, and it's so affordable to buy starts out there that I recommend that you think of your area in terms of resources regionally, and you plan to take a trip out to an area that's thick with Amish greenhouses and go spend 150 bucks. Spend 50 bucks. You could do half the space with 50 bucks. You know, in plants that they are set up beautifully to grow these, you know. But for those that want to get started with a packet of seed and a little bit of soil, potting soil, you know, that's totally doable. Just be patient with yourself. You know, be patient with yourself, because it takes a minute to learn how to do it, you know. But that said, it doesn't, this is an example. I had some older eggplant seed and I scattered them in here, and now I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I probably have 15 little eggplants that are doing quite well. The key here is that they have a deeper fertility substrate. So I don't have them in one of these super shallow trays, like a super shallow. Yeah, I mean, they're pulling nutrient from here, and the quality of the potting soil. Jim and Pat, we will work together to make sure that you know that you're getting something that has deep fertility, or has the type of fertility necessary to be able to raise seedlings close together like this, to the point where they could be transplanted in the garden. These could. Because they're eggplant, I would recommend transplanting them into 3-inch pots and really getting them bulky, you know, getting them stocky before they go into the ground. But these could go into the ground. I would just provide them with some cover because it's a Mediterranean crop. But anyway, this product right here, I'll bring this over. This is called Seed Catapult. I don't work for them. I don't own any stock, but they are out of Ohio, and I think that's the key for me, is that Hartville, Ohio blends this product. The types of things you're looking for here: this has got some peat moss, sharp sand, vermiculite, perlite, organic nutrients, including Revita Compost Plus with kelp and humate. So we're talking about Revita is a product they sell that's composted chicken manure, organic chicken manure that's composted. They add kelp, sea minerals. These are the kinds of things you're looking for, okay? Kelp and humate, so that's a humus substance. It's natural. Rock minerals, fish meal, and crab meal. So it also has soil amending guaranteed analysis. Okay, so this has mycorrhizae in it as well. Seed Catapult takes so it has mycorrhizae, which is a beneficial soil fungus that is associated with the roots of plants, helps them grow stronger, and will essentially inoculate your garden with beneficial soil fungus. So that's something we can talk about more in depth, but essentially the roots of these plants are, you know, they have a cellular structure that is symbiotic with mycorrhizae. Is the general state of fungus in the soil is thread-like, and it can be extremely non-visible to the naked eye. Threads of fungus through the ground, and the mycorrhizae actually form a cellular relationship with the roots of the plants, and it greatly increases the reach of the roots of the plants to pull nutrients from the soil around it, and it actually connects plant communities. So these tomatoes, they will form a relationship with mycorrhizae, but that relationship will connect all those tomatoes into a community. And so if those ones down in the middle, because it's lower, are getting plenty of water, and the ones on the edges are not getting enough water, water can be transported through the mycorrhizal network to share resources. And trees do this on large scales in mountains and valleys. And they actually, you know, this up at the top of the hill, it's a drought condition. Down at the bottom, there's a stream, they're fine. They'll actually pump and send nutrients because the community, trees and plants generally don't see themselves as an individual. They see themselves as a part of a community. So they know that it's not nearly as we would impose a model of competition. There is competition, but they recognize members of their own species. Let's just say that, and they help each other out in that way. So, you know, a good soil with mycorrhizae. It'll say it on the bag. It should say it. Mycorrhizae or species of mycorrhizae included, and it'll give you like a list of all these names of what is it? Glomus seems to be like the genus name. Yeah.
How do you spell the
Mycorrhizae. So MICO is myco, which is just Greek for fungus, myco, and then rhizae is, I believe it's RHIZAE, and rhiza would be Greek prefix for roots, fungus roots. You know, it's a symbiotic thing. So. So when I use that material in these, I've started the relationship. So when they go in the garden, it's extension of the relationship is happening now in the soil, and you basically inoculated your soil with those. But these bacteria, they need living roots to survive. So they need a host essentially. So if the soil is like dead, like we're so meticulous about keeping nothing, nothing other than what we want in there, and then the plants all are harvested and die for the winter, and you don't keep any sort of perennial life in the garden, then you're probably knocking back your mycorrhizae population. So it's good to have some perennial plants, herbs growing in the garden permanently, or whenever you exhume your garden for the year, put in a winter rye crop or something over the winter, so that there's some living roots and some weeds, just some annual weeds or something. Like, leave some food there for the community to continue. Maybe even protect that bare soil. Bare soil is not our friend. Nature abhors a vacuum. We'll talk more about how to manage bare soil in the cultivation stage. So we're really just focused on propagation today, and part of that to me is transplanting. So I just want to do a quick transplant here to show you some tricks, as far as transplanting goes, because you have two different types of plants when it comes to transplanting. You have plants that, these are tomatoes. These are nursery born here. Pine Hill Nursery over in Pine Hill. It's great, over in New Wilmington. These are actually Amish paste. And so this is almost more like a vine, right? Tomatoes grow like a vine, and then you have plants that have like a set growth point. So these are eggplants. There's a place where the roots start and the stalk begins. You don't want to bury the plant beyond that point. What it'll do is it'll cause that stem, what they call hard neck, and it'll start to produce a woody kind of protection from the soil there, and it'll start to constrict the cells and the flow of nutrients and water. So you just want to be careful when you set it to the right depth. You know what I mean? Don't set it too low, and you don't want to set it too high, because the water will wash away from the roots. But it's something you get to learn by feel, and I'll show you, but you'll get it. It's really, this is a turnip actually. This is kale. Okay, this little guy is kale right here, and the kale is also one of those things that you don't want to develop a hard neck. You don't want to bury it too low. So they're just types of plants like vining plants. I'll show you the technique right now. This is what we're going to do. So I'll just be a savage about this. There we go. So this is a 3-inch pot. Sometimes I keep 4-inch pots around. Just keep containers around for the sake of what we have here. Is these plants are at the size where I roughly estimate the mass of the plant, and say if I were to condense that, and if it could fit in here, then it's time to transplant. Okay, so I look at this. These are peppers that I started here, and you'll see there's nothing like beautifully symmetrical about what I do. I sometimes use old seeds. Sometimes I get really good germination here in these pods, and these ones don't do so well. But like these right here, I've got 3 pepper plants. I put 3 in each pod. In this one I did, and they could probably just about fill that, content loosely, but they've got a little bit more time. Whereas this guy, he's really looking closer to ready to transplant, but not necessarily yet. You know, the mass of this plant, I've got some more room to fill that pod out. But if I look at like this, it's time. You know what I mean? The mass of this top here would, if it was condensed, you know, not too tightly, but I tried to stuff it in there, it'd be too full almost. So it's time to transplant these out. So just a general visual thing, you know what I mean? If that plant looks like it's overgrowing, the mass of it is growing the capacity of the container it's in, time to transplant. So we're about there with these. They could go another week or so, but I want to show you. So I'm gonna upgrade. You know, it's upgrading from apartment to house, maybe. And we're gonna get a really nice root system on this before we put it in the ground. And so with these vining type species, what we'll do is the best way to take these out is to